In today's tutorial, we are going to be learning about React, React.js, not React Native. But we are going to be learning how to do routes, how to incorporate Helmet for SEO, how to use Axios for APIs, a whole bunch of stuff that, for beginner learning of React. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevJour. Today I'm going to be building out a React app. In the past, I've told you how to create a single page application using vanilla JavaScript, so you don't have to use something like React. But I've been doing a lot of React development lately, so I'm just trying to kind of showcase some of the things that I've been learning. So in this tutorial, we're going to be going over how to install React, how to set it up, how to start it, how to install things like Sass, Axios, Bootstrap, the router for it. So there's a bunch of things we're going to do for it, and just bear with me because I am still learning React. So hopefully I'm doing everything to the best way possible. But if you do see something that I should be doing differently, then definitely leave me a comment below. And for now, let's get started. Okay, so first things first, I created a folder on my desktop called Sample React. I'm just going to open this in the integrated terminal inside of VS Code, and then I'm going to run npx create React app, and then I'm just going to put it in the folder that it's currently in, and then it's going to run through and it's going to start creating all the stuff that we need inside of React, and then I'm just going to clean it up a little bit once it gets created. So as soon as this thing gets done, I may have to fast forward this part depending on how long it takes to install it, but we should have something inside of this folder. Okay, so now it is done, so I'm going to go ahead and run npm start just so we can see the local version of it. It should open up over here in the browser. So I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. And it's currently saying that it is done. So the main files that we're going to be modifying are going to be inside of this source folder. Well, I'm still waiting on it to get done doing this so it starts watching it. But in the meantime, just for this sample project, I'm not going to do any test on it. I'm just going to set it up and then display what I want it to do. So I'm going to be handling the Sass or the CSS through Sass. So I'm going to delete all the files that I don't really need in this instance. So that would be this one, and then the test, since we're not doing testing, the index CSS. We can keep the logo SVG for now. I'm not going to be running the report web vitals. You can keep that one on there if you want. Don't need that either. Okay, and then our setup test. And now we kind of have the page the way we want it. So let's go into our index.js and just remove the things that we just deleted. Keep all of this. So now our index.js is good. So let's remove the app CSS. And now we have just the default page with all the content that we want. So I'm going to come in here and just remove this so we're starting with a blank template. And we can start building out the things that we need. So what I'd recommend doing is we have this running our local server. It's looking for changes. That way you don't have to Control C, Command C to cancel it and then make changes. I'm just going to open up a new terminal over here, and then this is where we're going to be running our commands to install things. For the most part, all the things that we're going to be installing can be found at the npmjs.com website. Like for example, you want it to do React Sass. No, that's not what it's called. Node Sass. So you would just find the repository that you're looking for, and then you can just run the npm code to get it working for you. One other thing, speaking of the package JSON, since that's what we're going to be updating, let's go ahead and remove the stuff that we're not going to be using here. So obviously we're not using the testing libraries. We can keep those. We're not using Jest. And actually, yeah, that's fine. And we're going to be using build. We don't need test anymore here. I guess we can keep it in there in case you ever want to do it. Let's get rid of the web vitals. And then that should be our package.json ready to add other things to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start installing some things. So we got npm install Sass. And while I'm doing it, we can go ahead. So you can see that it's been added to our package.json here. So we don't necessarily need that open anymore. Let's go into our app.js and actually no, inside of here we need to create a new folder. We're going to call it Sass, and that's where we're going to end up pulling all of our CSS from. So let's create a new file, just call it style.scss, and then we can change that. So let's do something like body background color, and then just make it black. Come over here and we can do import Sass style.scss. And as you can see here, it changed the background to black. So let's go ahead and just get rid of that for now. We're just going to use that as a reference later. In my previous videos, whenever I'm doing this, we watch the Sass, it compiles it into a minified style sheet that we then link to in the href. With the way that we're doing it here using the React Sass component, it allows us to be able to compile everything in real time. So we can write out the Sass the way that we would normally write it out, but it handles it differently when we go to actually import it. Okay, so next thing I want to install is, let's do npm install, I think it's Bootstrap. All right, and then let's do the same thing for icons, just in case. And I'm using Bootstrap, obviously, because I always use Bootstrap. But it's a pretty cool way to be able to add things to it. So we're going to import those as well. So we're going to import them directly from the node modules. So we're going to do Bootstrap, and then let's just do the distribution CSS, and I think it's bootstrap.min.css. And then let's also do the same thing for the icons. So we're going to do Bootstrap, not Bootstrap, we're going to do Bootstrap icons. And then we're going to do font, and then bootstrap-icons.css. Okay, so now we actually have something. Wait, I can't resolve that. So what am I doing wrong here? Bootstrap icons, not icon. There we go. Okay, so if we come in here and we do like an h1 and let's just say test app, it should automatically go over there. Now if we come over here and we do div, let's say container. Oh, I don't have my emmet turned on over here, so let's manually write it. So div class, you would normally do class equals, but with React you got to do class name equals. And then we're going to do the container here. And now we have this test app wrapped inside of a container. So you can see that it is using Bootstrap. And also if we wanted to add a Bootstrap icon, I don't know any of the icons off the top of my head, but let's do something like class name equals bi dash plus, maybe. See if that works. Okay, there we go. So we can see that the icons is working as well. Okay. So now we have our container set up using Bootstrap. I'm just going to switch it over to container fluid, and let's save that. Okay, so next thing I want to show you on this part is the React router. So let's do npm install React router DOM. And that's going to install the React router for us, because we're going to put the router inside of this container fluid, and it's going to be used as our router. So let's go ahead and create us a new folder called components. And inside of this components folder, we're going to have a new folder called pages. And this is just going to be some simple sample pages that I'm going to do. So let's do home.js. And then we can do export default. Okay, so we're going to do export default function home, then parentheses, and then I'm just going to return in the brackets just a div that says home. So that's one way to do it, where if we ran the code right now, it would work that way. But you can also just create the function home, and then you can export default home, which obviously isn't working right now because I have it declared at the top. The way that I've been doing it, I don't know if it's 100% right, but if the function has a lot of other like internal functions or constant variables that's being declared, I'll export it this way. If it's something simple where I'm just returning some HTML, then I'll just export the default so it's the only thing that's on the page. Again, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. That's just the way that I've been doing it. So let's go ahead and start just creating out some pages. So I'm going to copy this a few times, and let's do an about, and then let's come over here and do a contact. So let's do a contact, and finally let's just do one more and say not found. Okay, so let's change this up to not found. We're going to change this to contact. Then we're going to change this one to about. Okay, so right now I'm just going to close out of all of these pages because we don't necessarily need them at the moment. We just wanted to get them in place so we can start integrating the React DOM. Okay, so first let's come up in here, and I'm just going to import my React from here. I probably need to add that to the other pages as well, but for right now, I think it'll be fine. So let's do import, and then we're, instead of just adding it as a like a class that's being imported, we're adding specific functions for it. So we're going to do browser router as router, and then we're going to do route and then routes, and that's going to be imported from our React router DOM that we've installed. So if we come down here, we can set up a router, and then inside of that router we can set up our routes, and then inside of that we can set up our actual routes. So we're going to do route path equals, if it's the main page, we want it to display the home element. So we're going to do home. Need to actually display the component. Okay, so right now obviously it's not finding home because we have not imported home. So let's come over here and do import home from, I think it's just a components. There we go. Sometimes I get my my routing, not my routing, but my where the locations of these files are mixed up. Okay, so now we have our first route. That's not the way I wanted to close that. But as you can see over here, it says home. So if we go over here to about, obviously it's not displaying anything. So if we come over here and we create a new route, and I'm just gonna, instead of writing it all out, I'm just gonna copy this one. So come over here, route path is gonna be equal to about, and then we're just going to display the about component, and let's import about here. Pages about. About is not defined. Let me refresh that. Okay, there we go. It just wasn't keeping up with the change. Okay, so now we can see our about is about. We have our home here. Let's go ahead and do one for the contact page, which I think is going to be the only few pages that I create for this. So let's do that one. Copy this, and we're going to change this and this to a contact. So now we're just creating our routes. So we go to contact now. Everything should work there. But we also want to have this not found be used as well. So let's import the not found. And then this is going to be not found as well. And then we're going to make it where if it doesn't find anything, we want it to do route path equals a star. And then the element is going to be equal to the not found. And now we have, if it doesn't exist, it displays the not found page here. There we go. All right, so now we have our 404. So let's do 404 not found just to make it make more sense. Okay, so let's go back to our home page. So that's essentially how you do routing. You just set up your React router DOM, import as I have it here, and then you can set up your routes to do different things. You can also make it where you can pass some information to these. Like for example, if you wanted to pass in a variable, you can do test equals something, and that test something, if we go to our home.js, we can come over here and say that we want to pass in test, and then over here we just display test. Oh, doesn't need a $sign. PHP. Okay, so now you can see we're passing the word something from here to here. So that's how you could pass variables to your classes or your functions that you're creating. So I'm not going to use it that way, so let's just go ahead and delete that. We're going to contain all of the information inside of our individual pages. So let's just get that set up back the way it is. Okay, so since we're on the pages right now, I'm also going to go ahead and install. So we're going to do npm install React Helmet async. And make sure you use the async one just because it is a little bit more advanced. It works better with SEO. React is obviously not the best choice for me whenever doing something for SEO or social media, like the open graph tags and stuff like that, just because it doesn't pick it up unless you're running like a SSR. So like you're running Node on your server or something like that, which is generating all the content and then pushing it out so that it's actually like a full website that's being produced when the browser is loaded. Doesn't necessarily work that way for React just out of the box. There is some other things that you can do. You can create static sites from it, but in my small experience with React, and I could be doing it completely wrong, but it's not the greatest for SEO, and I think that's kind of something that's also discussed on the internet. But the React Helmet part of it makes it where you can actually display dynamic tags in real time inside of your title, your meta description, your open graph tags, all that kind of good stuff. So it makes it a little bit easier for the visual part of it, but not necessarily. Like Google adheres to running JavaScript in order to produce the end result, but like Facebook, Twitter, or X, or whatever it is now, LinkedIn, they don't necessarily run the JavaScript whenever they're pulling a link to a page. So using React right out the box like this, you might want to do something like Next.js or something like that in order to handle that a little bit better. But if you're using the create React app command, then you're gonna have to worry about that in the future. But this is a React project using create React, so we're not going to worry about that for this. If you want to do an app or something like that, it doesn't rely on SEO, this is the perfect way to go. Okay, anyway, so I got off track. We instituted a helmet, so we're going to actually use helmet. I'm going to show you on this home page how to do that. So let me go ahead and import React, just because we may use some of the functionality from it in the future. But I want to import the React helmet here. So we're going to do import helmet, and that's going to be from React helmet async. Okay, so what React does is it basically allows you to create, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do it directly in the page. I'm going to do it inside of its own modules or its own component. So let's create a new component and let's create a new folder and call it theme. And then inside of this, let's create a new file, call it seo.js. And we're going to do import React from React. And then we're going to do export default function SEO. And inside of this, we're just going to add our SEO. So let's do our return. And now we can do, I'm going to have to import helmet first. So let's take that away. Let's do import helmet from helmet async. And now we can do helmet. And inside of this, we're just going to simply pass a title. And we're going to pass a meta name description. Okay, so I want to be able to pass dynamic variables from the pages like home.js. So let's create us some variables up here. So let's do title. I'll keep using the $. Title, and then description. And let's just parse those here. So let's do title here, and inside of this we're going to do content equals description. Okay, so now in our home.js we can come over here and do import SEO from theme SEO, and then we just include the how we're actually calling it. Let's just put it, we got to have it inside of the return, the div for the return. So let's just do SEO, and then we're going to pass the title. So let's do title equals, and then we're going to just call this, what is this, a sample? No, let's just do home, keep it simple. And then the description is going to be, this is a sample description. And then we can just close out our SEO title page, or SEO information. Let's see, helmet, we're missing the helmet provider. So inside of our div class app, let's just do helmet provider, which I do need to import, but I'm just going to wrap the entire div in this because we will be using it on every page. So right now we have our title is home, and then if we inspect this, if you view the page source, it's not going to show you everything that you need, but as you can see here, it's adding home, and then the meta description, the sample description. So if we actually view the source, you'll see that it's not adding those things. It's adding the default that's in the HTML. So that's something to worry about whenever you're doing your SEO, but obviously this is a way that you can set it up. And then we can also go in here to our SEO and our title, and then let's just add a sample React app to that title. So then it adds it there. And then we can do the same thing for every page that we've done. So I'm just going to copy over this, and let's put it in the about. Need to import these as well, so I guess I can go ahead and import those on all of the pages before I start adding anything else. Okay, so now if we go over to the about, it should still be displaying the home. So let's change this to about us, and then it'll update over there. So I'm not going to show you all of them, but essentially it'll do the exact same thing for each one of these pages. I need to get my formatting set up in VS Code. So let's do 404 not found. And then finally, let's do contact us. Okay, so all of the pages should have a simple SEO thing. You can also pass in different things inside of your SEO.js. You could pass in, open graph titles, descriptions, make it match this. But for right now, just simple meta descriptions is fine. All right, so now that we've got the SEO part of the thing, let's create a new file. We're going to call it header.js, and we're going to do export default function header and import React. So with this, I'm going to actually add, so this is just going to be the header. So I'm just going to actually add this to the app.js. Let's take it outside of the container fluid and let's do header. And let's add it here. So import header. Let's go ahead and create a footer as well. And then let's go ahead and put that outside of it as well. Okay, so we have components theme header. Footer, and then we're going to I gotta wrap it in a div, so let's just do footer, and I need to do the same thing to the header. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because return, I'm missing a whole bunch of things on this one. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you how to add an image and also how to create some theme elements so you don't have to modify multiple places. All right, so there we go. We got our header, home, footer. Inside of our header, we're going to add an image. And I'm just going to take, let's create a new folder inside of here. Let's create a new folder. Let's call it assets. And I'm going to take in, let's do the logo square JPEG. So let's do import. Let's do import logo from get back. There we go. Assets, logo square JPEG, and then inside of where it says header, let's create a header tag, and then let's do image source equals logo, and then alt. You gotta have always gotta have an alt, and then we close it out. Keep doing dollar signs. There we go. Okay, so if we look at Node, you can kind of see as we're going through it, like for example, if we add in this logo without an alt tag, it's going to come down here and tell us, using the linter that we have, image elements must have an alt property. That's why I was telling y'all we need to do this. And in doing so, it'll make it where it successfully builds. Okay, so inside of this, let's just go ahead and style this a little bit. Let me do div class name and then inside of this I want to make it smaller, so let's do class name equals image fluid, which is Bootstrap, And then I want to do text center. And then as part of our styles, we can come over here and I'm going to add in a new folder called modules, which is where I would normally do it. So if you've seen any of my other videos, this is going to be header.scss. And then we're going to do header image, and let's do max width, let's say 100 pixels. I'm not going to make it like super advanced, but it'll be advanced enough. Okay, so now we need to do import. Oh, I forgot how to write SCSS. Been in here too long. I've been writing React too long. So at import header.js or header CSS. Why is that not working? Image header. Oh, that's because I have a class on it. So let's do, actually, you know what? Let's take it off, the class name off of it here. There we go. Okay. Just because I'm styling it there, I don't necessarily need it to be here. Also, just so you know, you can write style inside of this. Like for example, you would normally do something like this. That's not the way you do it in React. What you're going to do is you need to create an array. So in this array, you could do something like a text align and then center, which isn't going to have effect on this, but you can do something like let's see, like margin bottom. You can see, like, instead of doing, you know, margin dash bottom that you normally would, you do margin bottom and then put as a string. So you can do margin bottom 10 pixels. I don't need that either. But, you know, this is actual, like, accurate way you could do CSS. So if we go inspect this, style equals refresh. Okay, so now it added text align margin bottom. So you can do things like that. I'm not going to add a style to this. I just wanted to show you how it could be done. But let's get back to actually writing out what we want to write out here. So since we're in the header, let's go ahead and create a nav. And inside of this nav, let's just do simple navigation. The simple navigation would be where we, you know, we're just going to add the links to it. So ahref. I think there's actually a link to. Anyway, I'm just going to do ahref, and then this is going to be home. Need to wrap this in an li tag, and then let's do and then finally a contact page. So now we have this. So let's go in here and style this. So header ul, and we're going to do list type style none. Then we're going to do the li, and it's going to be let's do display inline dash block. Let's come up here and say we want to have padding 0, margin 0. And over here, let's do margin, say 0 and 1 rem. Okay, so now we have our pages where we can switch back and forth. Okay. And I'm just going to copy this, create a new file, footer. we're just going to change this to footer, and we don't need to have the image again, but I am going to have the footer down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and import our footer styles, and then I'm just going to copy this and put it inside of our footer. Oh, gotta create the footer first. Okay, there we go. Let's do div class name equals container fluid again. Now we can paste this in. And then we're also going to do text center here. Okay, so now we have our content and our header and our footer, so we can make it a little bit more dynamic. Don't really need any of this anymore because I'm just going to be using Bootstrap for the rest of it. Don't need that. Let's go to our about page, and since I'm going to modify this to actually pull from Axios. Let me see, do we have Axios? We do not have Axios installed, so let's switch over here and we're going to do npm install Axios. And Axios is a way to do a like pull from an API. So I'm just going to set up some of the dummy content here. It's just going to be pulling from an API. So since I'm going to be doing that, I want to get out of this, and we're going to do export default about. And then we can do, trying to remember the correct, I think it's this, nope, this, how do I do this? I forgot how to do, oh my god, I've been stuck doing React. There, okay. Don't need that anymore, okay. So this is no longer a function, it is a variable. Click on that, okay, so it's still giving us what we need here. What I want to do is I want to create a sample, like pulling from a sample Axios. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say import Axios from Axios, and then I also want to use the use effect. So use effect. I'm also going to use state. Need a comma here. Okay, so now we have what we are setting up inside of this about page. I want to start declaring some of the data that's going to be coming across before we get to the return. So let's first set up a constant, and we're going to create a variable called data, and it's going to use a variable called set data to set it, and then we're going to use state, and it's just going to be null to begin with. Next, let's set up a variable called isLoading, and then it's going to be set isLoading as the function that actually sets it, and then we're going to use state true. So whenever the data is being loaded, it's going to automatically be setting the isLoading as true. And then finally, we're going to pass in a potential error. So we're going to do set error. And then this one's going to be equal to use state. And then we're going to do null again. Okay, so now we have kind of the fundamentals of how we're going to be pulling our data, checking whether it's loading, and if it has an error state. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to use effect, and inside of this, Gotta get my short functions right. Okay, so inside of this, we want to set up a constant called fetch data equals async. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to fetch the data. So we're going to set it up in a try catch. So let's go ahead and set up our try catch. And we'll just pass the error that comes from it. And then we're going to do set error equals error. So it actually displays the error. And then we're going to do set is loading. And this is going to be false because it's already loaded and came up with a false. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to try to hit a dummy response. So I'm just going to be using a dummy API. So we're going to do await Axios.get. And we're going to be returning, I think there's JSON placeholder dot typecode.com post/1, I think is the real one. We'll see. So set data is going to be response.data. Set is loading is going to be false. Okay, so now we have the try catch, our constant that's already being set. So we need to call this. And just so you know, in the future, you potentially are going to run into this issue where you need to have a where you basically end the transaction for the effect. And I'll see if I can show you what it looks like without it. Where is my, what browser am I in? Okay, I'm in Chrome. Where is my, it's not showing all my stuff. Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong spot. So let's go to the network here, and we're gonna reload the page, and you can see that it's loading some things. If we remove this, you see how it continuously tries to load and load and load that Java it's trying to get the Axios response. That's because we're not terminating the end of this use effect. It's basically anytime something changes, which this is changing, it runs it again. So by adding in this, sending back a blank array after, or ending the transaction, makes it where it runs it, grabs what it needs, and then it gets out. Obviously, it is not displaying anything right now. So let's come over here, and I want to say, let's just do a console log. Data. See what it's actually returning. So console log that, and it can't find this. I'm assuming it's because I got the URL wrong. Yeah, there's nothing there. Let me try to find a better place to pull some dummy information from. All right, after some searching, I found this. So we're going to do the dummy JSON. Let's clear this out, refresh here. Okay, so we're actually able to pull products. And again, don't worry about it displaying multiple times. That's not the way it actually works. It's just because I have, React's running in the browser in real time. So let me move this down. So we're getting our data. So now let's actually display the data that we want. Okay, let's do if is loading. We want to display something. So we're going to return a div, and we're just going to say loading if error. We want to return a div, and we're just going to display the error. You can console log it, but I'm just going to display it. and we're displaying the error there. And then finally, once we actually pass those two, we want to display some of the data inside of this. So let's do, I'm just gonna display the actual code that's coming. So we're gonna use stringify data, and it's actually displaying what we have there. We can make it a little bit prettier. Actually, let's do that. We have what our data is. So let's do a for each loop to grab everything. To do that, we need to do data.products, because that is our array here, .map, and then we're going to just pass it as item. And then let's go ahead and create an li tag, and we're going to pass the key, because with React you have to have, if you're looping through something, it needs to have a unique key. So we're going to do item.id, and then we are going to pass in, let's do item dot, I think it's title, products ID title, curly brackets, item dot title in curly brackets. Oh, it's a method, so I need to return it. Okay, so now it is displaying all the data. Is there anything else that we can pull from this? Let's see. Small description. Does it have an image? It does. And let's just pull thumbnail. Do they all have 4 images? So, okay, they have a thumbnail itself. Okay, so let's come down here, and let's add a break tag, and then we're going to do image source item.thumbnail. Then we're going to do alt equals item.title. Okay, so let's also add a class name image.fluid. Trying to think. Okay, let's create a Sass for this. So let's do new file products dot SCSS, and let's do product, and let's make it text align center. I'm having to do all of this on the fly with no reference. So we're gonna do, yeah, let's do this. Let's do div class name equals product. So we're not wrapping it in an li tag anymore. And then let's take this, products. There we go. Okay. Inside of this, let's do display. And I know I could do this with a flex. I'm just going to do it real quick. So we're just going to make it a width of 33%. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's take this, wrap it in H2. Actually, let's wrap it in H1. Okay. Now, let's do 33%. We're going to add some padding to it, and that's just going to be 1 rem. So in order to make this look accurate, let's do calculate 33% minus 1 rem. So it gives it spacing on each side of it. And then let's do border 1 pixel solid. Let's just do something light. And let's do margin 1 rem. Okay. I know that is not pretty, but it's displaying what I want it to display. All right. Let's see if there's anything else that we can pull in here. Let's do the price as well. So we got the image. Let's add another break tag, and then we're gonna do item dot price. $549. All right, so let's format it. Okay. All right, so that's probably a little bit more than you needed to know about pulling an API, but as you can see here, you pull an API, it's grabbing what we want, and then it's parsing the data using Axios, which was kind of the whole point of this part of it. Wow, that looks terrible. Okay, anyway, I'm not really too worried about the way that it looks, so we're not going to worry about that. Let's go back to our home page. I'm trying to figure out what else I can show you real quick. So we've imported an image, we got a header, footer, we've used Axios, we've done SEO. Let's go to the contact form, and let's set up this contact form. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this as a constant variable because we're going to do some stuff inside of it. So the constant variable equals this function, and then we're going to export default contact. Okay, so what I want to do inside of this is do some stuff with like form submission and validation. So we need to import useState, and we're going to use that as part of this. So let's set up a const form data set form data. And then this is going to be equal to use state, and we're actually going to pass some variables inside of this. So we're going to do name, name, then it's going to be blank, and then we're going to do email, which is also going to be blank, then we're going to do message, also blank. So this is the form data that we're going to be looking for. We also need to create an error just like we did before. So we're going to do const, and then we're going to do errors, set errors, and then this is going to be equal to use state, and we're going to pass a blank object in it because this is going to be coming from multiple fields. So that's why it's errors rather than error. Then we're going to do const here is submitting, set is submitting, and then this one's going to be use state false. Okay, so now we have the basic variables. So we need to set up a handler. So we're going to do const handle change. And then we're going to pass in the actual element that is being changed. And then we're just going to come back and manage this. And then we're going to do the same thing with the handle submit. And we'll come back to both of these once we get to that part. Okay, so right now, let's go ahead and set up an H1. contact. And inside of this, we're going to do form on submit equals, and it's going to be that handle, not handle change, handle submit that we've put up here. And then we are going to just add the labels. So let's do a div, or we're going to add the elements. So label, and whenever you do whenever you do a for a label in React, you got to do HTML for equals name, and then we're just going to pass in the name. Let's do input type equals text. Let's go ahead and do this the way React would want it to be formatted. So ID equals name. The value is going to be equal to form data dot name, and then on change we want it to handle the change, which is something that we're also going to be adding in there in a minute. Okay. If it has an error, we want to do if the errors name errors.name is true, we want to just parse out a span, and it's just going to be displaying the errors.name string. Or if this is set, display it. Essentially what that's going to be. Let's go ahead and do class, since we're using Bootstrap, let's do class name, form control, and that's fine. I was going to do form control large, but I think that's sufficient for what we need. Okay, so we have our first one. Let's take this, we're going to copy it down, we're going to make a few changes and turn this into a email. And we're also going to change the type to email as well. All right, and then let's go ahead and copy this down. We're going to have to modify it because it's no longer going to be an input like that. So we're going to do message. Let's just go ahead and update these. Okay, so message here. So we're going to change this to a text area. Okay, so now the value for that is still going to be message, and we no longer need a type. Okay. Okay. Let's also give it rows equals 10. Just make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And then finally, let's throw in our button here. So we're going to do button type submit. And we're just going to disable it so they can't whenever they click submit, they can't click submit again. So we're just going to disable it if it's in the process of submitting, and then we're just going to call it submit. Let's go ahead and add a class name here as well. So class name equals btn large. Let's do btn primary. I don't think I need to have it large either. And give us a little space below that. Okay, so now we have our form set up. We have to make it do the handle change and do the handle submit. So going to our handle change, we want it to check to see if it's validating. So let's do set form data, and we're going to be passing form data to this in order for it to set name, email, message. E.target dot name, and then e dot target dot value. So I noticed that in the e dot target name equals e dot target value, we're actually not setting a name, we're setting the ID. So if we do e dot target dot ID here instead, it should start parsing the information. So we can also verify that form data is being changed. So we do console log form data, and we inspect this, go to our console, and let's just clear this. As you can see, test, email, message. So by the time it gets to our handle submit, the form data should already be populated with everything they need to populate. Yep, so that is what I wanted it to do. So let's go ahead and get rid of this console log. And let's start working on the submit part of it, where we're actually going to handle some errors. Okay, so once we go to submit it, we're going to do e dot prevent default to make it so that it doesn't accidentally submit the form without running through what we want. And let's we're going to have to create a function called validate, and then we're just going to pass in the form data. So we'll create that function in just a second. What we want to do is submitting, and this is going to now become true. And then finally, we're just going to console log form data. This is where you would actually hit the API or a server endpoint to process the form, which I'm not going to show you in this just because it's a little bit more advanced, and it includes, like, what I would do would be like PHP or use a third-party service, which is too much for this tutorial. But for right now, we're just going to just console log out the data. So let's create this function validate, or constant validate, and then this is going to be equal to values, which is then going to validate everything that we have in here. So let's refresh this to get everything all blanked out. So let's do let errors, and it's just going to equal a blank object. So errors equals a blank object, and then we're going to do if values.name.trim, just because we want to get rid of any additional white space that may be there, so blank or whatever. Then we're just going to parse the errors dot name equals name is required. Okay, so let's give this one a shot. So if we fill out anything, here, let's not put anything in there, see what it does. Cannot read properties if undefined. Name, reading name. Errors.name equals errors. All right, so let's see what it's logging out in the console as values. So it's logging out, I think that's coming from there. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so it's logging out the values, and they're all currently blank, so we should be values.name is there, errors.name, name is required. So why is it trying to submit? Let's return the errors. Okay, there we go. So I just wasn't returning what it was actually trying to look for. Okay, so we can get rid of this. And let's validate the other stuff. So we're going to be pretty much doing the same thing here. So email, and the email is required. But we also want to do another one that checks to make sure that it actually has what an email address should have. So our error message is going to be email address is invalid. And for this, we're going to first check to see if the value exists. And then, actually, you know what? We can probably do this here inside of an if statement. So let's do this. So else. Now we can check to see if it's inside of there. So let's take this, and it's going to check to see if it exists. If it exists, then it's going to not show the email is required. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to see how I can simplify this. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and do it the reverse, because I want to do an else if statement here. Okay, so else if. So if the values is not there, it's going to return that error. If it is there, we want to check to make sure that it's parsing an email address. So let's add a space there. Else if this email address is, we need to validate it against a regular expression. So I'm just going to paste in the regular expression that I used in my test, and it's basically just testing to see if this equals, you know, the @ symbol, the dot, all this kind of stuff, so the formatting is correct. So if we do something like this, here, let's change this from a type email to a type text. So if we do this now, email address is invalid, name is required. Okay, so that's going to be checking to see if the email is correct. And then finally, we want to do this same thing, but it's going to be messages or message. All right, so submit here. Message is required. Let's go down here and take this, this, and just do class name error. Create a new file here for the contact.scss. And we're just going to make it red. Get rid of that. Okay, so just to kind of differentiate them a little bit, you can actually see that it's required. And the submit button is being grayed out, so we cannot resubmit it. So I don't know if I like that. Okay, let's try this a different way. Let's set up a constant variable. So let's say validate validation errors equal this, and then set errors is going to be the validation errors, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to say if object dot keys validation errors dot length is equal to 0, then we run this. I think that'll work. So I'm just going to put a message here to let me know that it's actually hitting it. All right, so let's refresh this. We hit submit. It doesn't go through. So if we do this, and then let's leave this one blank. Okay, so that's good. Test here. Okay, All right, so that worked out. So basically, the issue was that it was not setting the errors. I mean, it was setting the errors, but this takes it out of the function and actually runs this variable, which is making it where it's not running it immediately whenever it's supposed to here. So if we validate the form data first and then just set the errors based on what's being returned in the validate function, then it's grabbing what it needs to prior to setting the error, and then we can just look through to see if it equals to 0. If not, then it parses it. So instead of console log here, let's do console log submit form here. Okay, so now we can't click on that because it's been disabled, which is what we're looking for. So let's do this again. And submit form here. Okay, so now that is working the way that it should be working. We can also make it where once the console log submit, we can set a variable to, let's say, like create another variable up here. So let's do const submit it set submit it equals use state false. And then down here, once the form is submitted and it parses everything it needs to, we can do set submitted true. And then down here, we can do if submitted, and then we just return a div. Just return a thanks. So let's run through this. It's required. Test here, submit it, and then it returns the thank you message. Perfect. Okay, so one last thing that I want to show you is how to set, because the only reason I'm thinking of this right now is because, you know, usually whenever you do a form, you do like a reCAPTCHA, which requires like an API key. Or, you know, on this part right here, maybe some of these APIs require keys. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So first we need to cancel out of the npm start because we need to create an environment file. So let's do new file .env. And then over here, you create your variables in your environment file because you obviously don't want to have them visible inside of your JavaScript unless you absolutely need to, but for the most part, you know, doing it this way should be sufficient. But whenever you're creating it with a React app, you do React app, the name of whatever it is, you know, that you're trying to do. And for right now, I'm just going to do test variable. And basically, so just React name, and then this will be like API underscore key or whatever it is. And then the React part of it is just so you can differentiate between what you're doing for PHP or what you're doing for React. So, you know, you create your PHP variable just by doing, you know, variable name, you know, stuff like that. You can, well, let me go ahead and, I don't think you need the single quotes. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's just something that I'm trying to add on here. But let's say we're already on the contact page. If I want to use that variable, I could go down and do something like, here, let me come up here. And I'm just going to do constant variable equals env, no, not env, that's how you do PHP, process dot env, and then whatever the name is that we called it here. So now we have this completely misspelled variable name. So now we have this variable that's available to us to use inside of our code or use inside of the page. So if I do something like this, oh, also, since you had to stop the app whenever you create the env file, if you don't stop the app, it won't actually read it because this is part of, like, you know, the server side of it, I guess. But we need to go back and restart our server, which is going to open up a new window here. So if we go over to our contact page, now you can see the test variable is being produced, so you can actually read it. But yeah, so that's just a way that you can, use Git to, push up your repo, but don't actually share your environment file codes or anything like that. So you don't have like your API keys inside of your environment, stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to know in case you've never done it before. You can do the same thing with PHP. You just have to import the environment file in order to be able to use it inside of PHP. But on this one, you can just do process.env, the name of the variable, and it'll import it from your environment for you. Okay, so now we have successfully finished out the website. So once you get done building out your website, the next step is to, let me just close all of these so you can see it happen in real time. So we have our public folder, source folder, environment, all that kind of good stuff. So you would do npm run build. And what it's going to do is going to create this build folder here. And then it's going to basically compile everything that you've created inside of this. And it's going to create static files for them. So you can see your static JavaScript, static CSS, all that kind of good stuff. And then if you look at your index.html, it's basically taken your public index.html that you have here, and it's making it where it can be basically just copied and pasted to a server, which is what I've done before. Also, if you're pushing it out to like Git or something like that, or GitHub, and you want to display it as like your repo landing page, you can do that. There's a whole bunch of cool things that you can do with it. But basically what you do is take this entire build folder, so everything inside of this, copy it, paste it, FTP up, and you have a functional website. So it's pretty cool. But this is basically React from kind of like start to finish. I know it was simplistic in some places, but for the most part, it should kind of put you in a place where you know how everything works. Not everything, but you should be able to build out a simple either single landing page website like a SPA, or build out a multi-page website using routing. But yeah, so this should be able to get you started with it. If you have any questions or comments, definitely hit me up with a comment below. I try to respond to them as often as I can. If you like this type of video and you are not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, one other thing, while I am thinking about it, if we go over here, I don't know if anybody has seen this yet, but if you go to the devdrawer.com, you can see all these tutorials as well as blog articles, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I'm gonna start promoting a little bit more is my merch store. If you like quirky dev stuff, I've created some things on here. All of these are my creations. I am selling them. I think that they're relatively good priced. I have a lot more designs. I'm just trying to start it out right now. But yeah, if you're interested, take a look at some of the stuff I have and support the channel. But for right now, I think I'm going to call it quits on this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I know React is somewhat daunting, but once you start getting into it, it's a lot easier to understand and a lot easier to use. And the reason why I've started getting heavy into it is just because, if you're looking for a job, for example, a lot of companies require some kind of React experience or knowledge. So it's better to kind of learn it while you can. But yeah, hopefully this helps. If not, leave me a comment and tell me why it didn't. Or if you see anything in here that I could do better, let me know, because I'm definitely not an expert in this by any means. I'm sure there's a lot more for me to still learn. But yeah, just give me a thumbs up, go hit the merch, and leave me a comment. I'll talk to you later.